Right, I cleared up some space on my phone, so let's resume. Number 35, Elio. I was going to put Elio lower down after I found out that originally Elio was meant to be more gay coded as a character, and they removed that because, in the words of Pete Docter, we're not making therapy. Fuck you, Pete Docter. That's a terrible reason to remove a gay character, and also, frankly, just homophobic. It's also just terrible to have removed the gay coding in the first place, but uh, I'm trying to judge the films on their own merit, not by who made them or what they could have been. So I will say Elio is fine. It's very serviceable. There are some jokes I laughed at. There's some nice moments. And yeah, there's not that much to say about it really. It's about a little boy who wants to be abducted by aliens because he feels not at home on planet Earth. Why does he feel not at home? It feels like he doesn't have that much of a reason. It feels like they maybe removed a reason for him not feeling at home. Hmm. But yeah, it's not bad. It's extremely conventional and extremely forgettable. I feel a bit bad putting it above Arco because Arco is a much more ambitious film, but as I said, I feel Arco stumbles a bit because of its ambitions, whereas Elio has much lower ambitions and does not stumble. And that's the way of the world sometimes. Number 34, A Friend of Dorothy. This was nominated for Best Live Action Short Film. A Friend of Dorothy is a very well intentioned film. It's very easy to watch. It's quite twee, in my humble opinion. It's about a young man who accidentally kicks a football into an old woman's garden. The old woman invites him in because she needs some help moving objects in her house because she's very old and he's young and spry. And through the time he spends with her, he ends up reading plays because she has a very extensive library of play scripts, and it turns out he has a passion for acting. He's a young black man, she's an elderly, rich white woman. And the film is framed so at the beginning you see that her will is being read, and you wonder, ooh, will he have managed to inveigle her way into her heart with his nice attitude and friendliness. It's very twee, it's very sentimental. It really is well intentioned, and I don't think it's poorly made, but you can tell everything that's going to happen from the first sort of minute or 2 minutes of the film, and doesn't have that many surprises to it. The acting is very nice. I think the idea is perfectly fine, but it's again, it's nothing revolutionary, and I just think there were more interesting entries to get through. But again, it's on Disney Plus. I think it's also on YouTube now, and it's perfectly enjoyable. There's nothing objectionable about it at all. So please do watch it if you have the time. It's only 20 minutes long. Number 33, Come See Me in the Good Light. So when I was looking through the documentaries I would have to watch for this challenge, I saw that a lot of them were about war or about the American justice system. Then I saw that there was one about a poet laureate, and I was like, "Ooh, that'll be the easy one to watch. That'll be the fun, light relief to watch." No, the poet laureate has terminal cancer. So, I will say I had not heard of Andrea Gibson before this film. I think I actually had read some of their poems, but I didn't know about them as a person. They come across incredibly wise, incredibly fun to spend time with, and the bits of their poetry that we do hear in the film are excellent. It made me want to consume more of their work, which I do think is the main point of this film. However, the cancer thing also runs through, and again, the cancer allows Gibson to deliver some real pearls of wisdom, to really reflect on life, and there's some beautiful moments of them talking about the meaning of life and how a fatal diagnosis kind of puts everything into perspective, and that's lovely. However, I don't think that the film does as much as it could do with its premise. I think Gibson's poetry could have been incorporated much more. I think we could have seen more of their process. It kind of feels a bit disjointed. It feels like There's a documentary about a poet, and there's a documentary about someone with cancer, and sometimes those two roads meet, but not all the time. But I do think that it's very worthwhile seeing this film. It really does make you appreciate not having a terminal cancer diagnosis in your life. So again, I put this quite low down just because I think that there are better entries, but I do not regret seeing this for an instant, and it did make me want to read more of Gibson's poetry. So that was a nice experience, if nothing else. Number 32, Retirement Plan, which is nominated for Best, Animated Short. Retirement Plan is very fun. It's a list of things that someone plans to do when they're older. It's animated. It has the shape of poetry to me. I don't know if the script was originally written as a poem or if it's meant to be interpreted as a poem, but it felt like a poem to me. And yeah, it's very fun. It's a bit like Come See Me in the Good Light in that it does kind of make you appreciate the time you have left and make you want to go out and live life to the fullest. It's very simple. It is fun. It is pleasant. There was something about the animation which reminded me a bit of some adverts they've seen on British TV, which I didn't quite like so much. I mean, I do think that it's deliberately simple. It's a deliberately simple style, so I can't fault it too much. But again, um, other entries excited me more. But again, nothing against the people who made Retirement Plan. Still quite an enjoyable work. Number 31, Viva Verdi, which was nominated in Best Original Song. Viva Verdi is a documentary about a bunch of classically trained singers living in a retirement home specifically for musicians. I watched this in the midst of watching all the Best Documentary nominees, which, as I've said, were quite hard to get through. Very serious subject matter, and Viva Verdi it was so pleasant. It was so nice. A bit like A Friend of Dorothy, it's quite twee, it's quite sentimental. You really can predict what's going to happen in it, but you know what? I just enjoyed it. It made me wish I could sing, which I mean I wish I could sing quite a lot, but it really made music seem like this vital, wonderful animating force in people's lives, and it made me very sad that I am completely tone deaf, but it was beautiful, and I think it made a case for itself in a format where, again, I do think it could have come across as overly sentimental, and just a bit lightweight. It to me it managed to convey its own sense of value, and I really enjoyed it. So no regrets watching that one. Number 30, Children No More. This one is nominated for Best Documentary Short. This is another one about the genocide in Palestine. This is, again, a very difficult watch, and it's hard to talk about it in an artistic level because it's a quite blunt, straightforward presentation of a group of people in Israel who set up silent protests showing the pictures of children who were killed in Palestine, and I think they give facts about them as well, and it shows the torrents of abuse these people suffer from passers-by, how people get angry at them, how they receive sometimes physical threats, or the police force them to move along even though they are silent protests. They're not, causing an uproar. They're not inciting violence. So yeah, it's another tough watch. It's a very straightforward documenting. It is a documentary of a real life phenomenon and something that people would do. It was affecting. I did feel for the people protesting. It did make me again angry at the injustices that are being committed. But I feel sometimes that the documentaries get a pass because of their subject matter rather than because of the the actual filmmaking going into the documentary. Not that I thought the filmmaking was bad, far from it, but it wasn't, to me, the most artful presentation of the subject matter. So I do think uh, they could have done slightly more with it. Number 29, Forever Green, which is nominated for Best Animated Short. This is a very cute fable set in a forest about a living tree who adopts a bear cub and protects them throughout various um, difficulties in their life in this forest. It's very cute. It's very charming. I mean, almost all of the animated shorts this year were extremely cute and charming. It had a simple message, but it was well told. And again, it's short, so I highly recommend you go watch it. I can't imagine that you'll regret the time you spent doing so. Yeah. Number 28, Weapons. I went into Weapons with exactly the wrong amount of information. I had not heard about Weapons until Amy Madigan started getting predicted to be nominated for Best Supporting Actress, which is what happened. Madigan is the film's sole nominee in, again, Best Supporting Actress. So I watched Weapons, having read for months that Madigan was predicted to be nominated and maybe even to win. So I knew that she was coming. I also knew just from the vague descriptions people would put on the film that she was playing some sort of witchy antagonist. And I was really excited because I was like, wow, horror performances hardly ever get in. Wow, this is going to be so good. This is going to be like a rip-roaring, house-burning, barn-storming performance. She is in extremely little of the film, and I do think that's for the best. However, it made the first half of Weapons quite tedious to me. So the premise of Weapons is that all of the children from a particular class go missing on the same night, except for one, and their teacher is blamed, but the police cannot find any indication that she is at fault, so she's placed on administrative leave. So immediately as a teacher, I'm like, all of my students disappear and I get paid time off. Where is the horror? But the problem is that the first half of Weapons, or the first more than half of Weapons, is kind of structured like a mystery where you're trying to figure out what's happening and why and what could have caused this. And you as an audience know that it is something supernatural because you know that you're watching a supernatural horror. Now, I understand that the characters in the film don't know that they're watching a supernatural horror, or don't know that they're in a supernatural horror, and it would be a worse film if they did know that. And you have to treat it with a certain amount of seriousness. However, it is still quite annoying to watch these people go through the steps of investigating this like it's a mundane mystery when you know that the solution will be something supernatural. And I knew that Aunt Gladys, I knew that Amy Madigan's character was coming, and I was just waiting for that. And I was getting quite annoyed, especially the sequences with the drug dealer felt very pointless to me. It just felt like kind of adding in a sort of sordidness to the film because it's a horror and it needs to feel off kilter and dissolute. And then finally, Amy Madigan came on screen, and it is not a bad performance by any means. That's not what I'm saying, but I was expecting more because of all the praise it had been getting. However, I think if I had gone into the film not suspecting she was there or not knowing about her, I think it would have felt so much more revelatory, this performance, because I think that mystery, having the solution to that mystery suddenly presented in the form of this character, I think really would have elevated her performance in my view. So I do think that Weapons was hampered by the Oscar coverage of it, just for me personally. Lots of people have loved this performance, and again, I don't think it's bad. I think Amy Madigan is the best thing about the film, so I'm perfectly happy for her to be nominated, but I have to say, Weapons, for me, it's a very interesting concept. I think it's a great idea for a horror film. I think the execution could have been done better. Number 27, Train Dreams. This was nominated for Best Picture, Best Cinematography, Best Song, and Best Adapted Screenplay, I believe. I might have missed one off there. Train Dreams was the Best Picture nominee I knew the least about going in to watch it. It's a film set in the past. I can't remember the exact era. Joel Edgerton plays a man who works in the logging industry, cutting down tall trees. and it follows him over quite a long period of his life and the various tragedies and vagaries that befall him from working in that industry and from other things of that era. At first, I thought that Train Dreams was going to be episodic. It was going to be just different short stories from the lives of people who worked in the lumber industry, all kind of tied around Joel Edgerton's character. And I thought that would be a wonderful idea for a film. There is danger because logging is an inherently dangerous field to work in, but it could also be sweet, it could be wise. It looks beautiful. The cinematography is amazing, and I thought that's what the film was going to be, and I was very much here for that. I thought that was a great idea for a film, and something I hadn't really seen before. However, and I'm afraid I have to get into spoilers here, so if you don't want a spoiler for the end of Train Dreams, skip forward maybe a minute or two. Um, so Joel Edgerton meets a woman and marries her. They have a child, and then there's a huge fire, and the wife and the child perish in this fire. And Joel Edgerton spends the rest of the film in deep grief. And that's not a bad idea for a film. And it's specifically he spent so much time away from them because of his job. So he feels like he missed out on time with them. The problem is that the wife is it's such a classic case of fridging. The wife has just no personality. There's this one clip of her they keep on replaying where she says his name in a bit of a weird. She's like a bit of a weird way. She's like Robert, and they just keep on replaying that. And I think it's because there are so few scenes where she shows any actual character, and so much of the film's runtime and emotional weight is dedicated to the loss of her character. And I personally just did not feel it because she didn't feel like a character to me. She just felt like a pre-dead wife. So it's really sad, but I did not feel Joel's character's grief. And again, I also know that a child died, but the child is cute, which is all children can really be. And there's a nice scene where the child throws something into a river that she shouldn't have thrown into a river, which is cute and gives the character at least some personality. But again, you don't spend that much time with these characters, and then they're gone, and then being gone is such a huge focal point of the story that it's they really needed to be better drawn than they are. So sadly, that just knocks Train Dreams down a huge chunk for me because I could not get invested in mourning these characters that we didn't really know. Number 26, The Perfect Neighbor. This was nominated for Best Documentary. This is told entirely from, well, almost entirely, it's not quite entirely, police body cam footage. There are some interviews interspersed and some footage taken by the documentary crew, presumably of the area. And there's some interview footage from the police station chucked in there. It tells the story of a real life murder of a woman in America, a black woman who was shot by her white neighbor. She was shot through a locked door. So the white neighbor had locked herself in her house. The black neighbor came over to talk to the white neighbor because the white neighbor had been harassing this black woman's children, and the white neighbor shot her through the door, and sadly, the black woman passed away. And the film is told through police body cam footage, and there is so much body cam footage of this white woman because she repeatedly harassed these children, and she repeatedly phoned the police about these children playing in a public play area near her house. The children were not trespassing, the children were not doing anything wrong, they were just being kids. And this woman repeatedly phoned the police on them. So there's a lot of police cam footage of this woman. This film is so infuriating. It's meant to be, but you just watch this woman repeatedly get away with harassing these children and harassing her neighbors. And you know from the beginning that this woman is going to murder someone, and you see the police fail to stop her time and again, and it is so infuriating. And yeah, I think this film is very well conceived, and I think it's put together very well. It is a very difficult watch. It's on Netflix. I At one point, I thought I wouldn't complete my watch through because I wasn't sure I could watch through all of this. Sadly, this actually wasn't even the most harrowing documentary I ended up watching for this death race. But yes, it is. It's very well made. So watch it if you can. Number 25, The Devil is Busy. This is about an abortion clinic in America, and it's just the one day in the management and the direction of this abortion clinic. It focuses on mainly on the woman who runs this abortion clinic. Slightly sort of shows her having to deal with protesters, and the amount of security she has to go through to make sure that people who come to her clinic and people who work at her clinic are safe. Again, this is a documentary with a very straightforward presentation, but I think that works because it really brings a topic that gets a lot of discussion in abstract terms. It brings it down to earth, and it reminds you of the human beings at the center of this discussion. The woman who runs the abortion clinic, whose name I sadly can't remember, comes across as just a very normal, very down to earth woman with a difficult job who does her best. And I think she's quite a compelling character in her kind of ordinariness, and her personality contrasted with the absolute hate torrents that are coming from the protesters is it's a chiaroscuro kind of effect of normalcy and just absolute bloodthirsty hatred, which I think is quite compelling. And yeah, I think this short documentary is really well done. So another recommendation. Number 24, Butterfly, which is nominated for Best Animated Short. This is the heaviest of the animated shorts this year. It deals with a lot of difficult subject matters, including the rise of fascism and violence against minority groups. It also has perhaps the most experimental aesthetic of any of them. It's told in this kind of lush, painterly way where you can sometimes see the paint smudging as they're repainting over it, but it creates this very compelling, very artistic, beautifying kind of aesthetic that contrasts with some of the horrific subject matter on screen, but in a good way. I think it tells its story well, and it's a true story, so it's a very compelling way to put that story on screen, and also it allows for an exploration of an entire life in a very truncated amount of time because of the abstraction that the animation allows. It never feels rushed, and you feel like you do get a whole overview of this person's life, which is very good, very skillfully done. Number 23, Perfectly a Strange Nurse. Perfectly a Strange Nurse is nominated for Best Documentary Short. This is, I would say, this year's answer to Flow, the animated film from 2024. Somehow, Perfectly a Strange Nurse is maybe even more abstruse than Flow, which is impressive because Flow was an animated film and Perfectly a Strangeness is a documentary, and yet it feels even more otherworldly and inexplicable. It's about a bunch of donkeys walking around a mountain that seems to be abandoned, and also there's an observatory and maybe a factory. I don't think you actually ever see the donkeys inside the factory, but that would have been fun. It's hard to explain this one. It's all about tone and vibe. I don't know that they were going for a deeper meaning. If they were, I'm sad to say it escaped me, but it was mesmerizingly beautiful. It was hypnotic in its strangeness, perfectly a strangeness, as you might say. So yes, I don't know how else to describe that one. It was incredibly strange but beautiful. Number 22, Song Sung Blue, which was nominated for Best Actress for Kate Hudson. Kate Hudson and Hugh Jackman play musical impersonators, people who make their living performing songs in the style of other musicians and making themselves up to look like those people. This film took me by surprise. I'd not heard that much about it. I knew it was about impersonators, but that was it. I thought there was a lot of interesting discussion about the actual world of being a musical impersonator. There were several realities of that business that I had never considered, which I thought were very interesting. People changing who they impersonate, and the fact that you're kind of out of luck if the person you're best at impersonating isn't particularly popular. all very interesting and told against the backdrop of a relationship between two impersonators that sadly incorporates a lot of tragedy into it. I think this film is well made. It's maybe a bit Lifetime original movie in its messaging. It has a very sort of almost cod mentality on trauma and getting back on your feet after sadness. But I can't hate it because I think it is a very earnest and a very well intentioned film, and I actually think it tells its story quite well. You really care for the characters, so when bad things happen to them, you feel it. I think the acting is wonderful. I think the musical performances are fun, and yes, I think the background of the musical impressions is an interesting setting for the story. It's a true story anyway, so it's not like they made it up, but I think it's told well, and this received some sniffy reactions on some of the Oscar boards, but I very much enjoyed it, and I'm glad I watched it. I would never have watched it if not for this race. So I I'm glad I did. Number 21, Kokuho. Kokuho is nominated for Best Makeup and Hairstyling. This is a film from Japan, and it is a very Japanese film. I used to live in Japan. I lived in Japan for 3 years. I still felt like I didn't have all the context to understand this film. So I don't know how other audiences will respond to it, other Western audiences, I should say. This film is about not a kabuki. Is it a kabuki actor? It's about it's about an actor in one of the Japanese theatrical traditions. The name escapes me right now. He's an onagata, which means he plays the women's roles. He is also the son of a yakuza boss, and he's adopted by a theatrical family, which is how he gets into this business. And he starts to outshine the theatrical family's biological son, which is a bit scandalous because of Japanese ideas of inheritance and family honor. What I found really interesting about Kokuho was, I think in the West, you could not tell a story where a mob boss's son turns out to be one of the most accomplished drag queens of his generation without mentioning gender. Kokuho mentions gender a couple of times, but it's really not a main feature or a main idea of the film. The fact that this Yakuza boss's son is playing women is only mentioned a couple of times as a thing to overcome. A lot of this film is centered in the actions of learning how to do these plays, do these performances, and that is very, very interesting to watch. It's a very well made film. It has a lot of interesting ideas. The sad thing is, as I said, some of the cultural context is lost on me, which knocks it down a couple of rungs. But it's a shame because I think if I understood everything that was happening on screen, if I could understand the full weight of all the ideas that the film is pushing, I could really have engaged with this film so much more. I could really have put it much higher. But as it is, it's at number 21 out of 50, so it's not doing too bad. Number 20 is The Voice of Hind Rajab. This was nominated for Best International Feature. This is another film dealing with the genocide in Palestine. This film, if you have not heard about it, this film made a splash at several festivals. It takes real-life audio of the phone call from a Palestinian child who is trapped in a car, surrounded by tanks, surrounded by military. She's phoning the Red Crescent organization, I believe it is, and she's trying to get them to come rescue her. The logistics of trying to rescue her are very difficult. They have to get an approved route for the ambulance to get through to her to save her. Her family have been killed all around her. She is sat in a car alone. As I said, they are using real audio of this phone call, so this real child's voice is playing in the film. Then they let you know that in the film. They're very explicit about it, but the rest of the drama around the phone call has been dramatized and is played by actors. This creates a slightly strange contrast to my mind, where the phone call is extremely realistic, because it is real people talking without artifice, and the the fictive content around that phone call is extremely heightened. It is very emotional, and I'm not denying that it's an emotional situation. It is, but it is a strange contrast between the more grounded notion of the phone call, the more grounded reality of the actual audio of what happened, and then the actors playing this scene around them of the actors shouting at each other about what they should do to help this girl, and they only have so much time, is very heightened, and it creates a strange contrast. It's not a bad film by any means, but it is definitely a film where you're aware of two pieces of two worlds colliding, let's say, like that, the world of reality and the world of fiction. Okay, number 19, Sentimental Value. This was nominated for a bunch of awards, including Best Picture and Best International Picture, and it has 4 acting nominations to its name. And it deserves all those acting nominations. This is probably the best acted film of the year. I can't fault any of its nominations. Well, maybe I would remove Elle Fanning's nomination in Best Supporting Actress, but she wasn't bad by any means. I just think there were maybe a couple of more interesting performances that got overlooked, sadly. However, the characters in Sentimental Value are extremely well drawn. They're extremely well played. You believe all of them. You identify with everybody and their situations. The 3 of the nominees are playing family members, and you believe them as a family. You really do believe that they are all related to each other, and it's very interesting that way. Sadly, I do think the film is a bit too long. It kind of makes the same point again and again. The film is about a famous film director who wants to make a film starring his daughter, who is now a stage actress. Both of his daughters used to act in his films when they were little. One of his daughters has completely left acting. The other one, as I said, is a stage actress. He wants her to star in his new film, and she says no, so he hires an American actress to play the part written for her. It's actually quite similar to several Woody Allen films that I've watched. It doesn't have the humor of the Woody Allen films, which I think in this context works to its benefit. I think if they'd all been cracking jokes, it would have kind of spoiled the mood a lot. But as I said, I do think these characters are well drawn. I think the tension is very believable. I think they create a unit of a family where you can absolutely buy into their struggles, and it's quite a salient and realistic depiction of depression. But sadly, as I said, I think the film is a bit too long, and it does repeat itself somewhat. It also has one metaphor right at the beginning about a house that has a flaw running through it that is just, you cannot overcome this flaw in the house, which is quite pat metaphor for depression. However, it's only mentioned at the beginning, so it's not the worst thing in the world. I liked Sentimental Value. Again, I am very glad I watched it, but I'm not sure I will watch it again, if I'm honest. Number 18, K-pop Demon Hunters. I live in South Korea. I am currently sat in a room at the base of Namsan Mountain, which is the mountain on which the climax of K-pop's Demon Hunters takes place. I was really hoping K-pop Demon Hunters would get into Best Picture, because then it would be the second Best Picture in 3 years where you could almost see my house, because you could almost see my house. You could almost see my house in past lives, but they were facing the wrong way. And again, K-pop Demon Hunters comes very close to showing the area of Seoul where I live, so I was excited, but sadly they didn't quite show it. I watched K-pop Demon Hunters in a quite bad scenario. I was watching it in class with my students. My students love this film. My little Korean students absolutely love the film about Koreans fighting demons. And sadly, yes, the watch through was interrupted several times by students. However, I still enjoyed this film a lot. I don't think it's perfect. I think there are some flaws in the presentation, but it's so much fun, and it has such a gonzo energy that you really don't mind. You really don't mind about any of the flaws that you might or might not spot while watching it. The music is fantastic. The animation is brilliant. I will say it's been very interesting living in Korea since K-pop Demon Hunters came out and made such a splash and became such a success worldwide. The Korean government has really adopted K-pop Demon Hunters. They release videos of government officials dressing up as the characters and singing the songs. And I find that very interesting because while I think K-pop Demon Hunters celebrates Korean culture a lot, I think it is quite critical of Korean society and the perfectionism that it exerts upon its inhabitants. So I find it very strange that the Korean government have identified so hard with this film. But I think that speaks on how great this film is and how much fun it is that you can actually sometimes not notice that it's insulting you. Anyway, number 17, Bugonia. I had a real hard time placing Bugonia on this list. Bugonia would be so much higher if it had a different ending. Again, I am going to have to spoil Bugonia to talk about it. So if you don't want to hear the ending of Bugonia, skip forward a couple of minutes. I might be talking about this one for a while, so you might just want to go and watch Bugonia before continuing watching this video, because I will really have to get into the weeds to talk about how much the ending of this film annoyed me. So Bugonia is a story about a man played by Jesse Plemons who kidnaps the CEO of a company because he believes that she's an alien. Now, when I say that the ending annoyed me, you can probably already guess what the twist in this film is. I was not explicitly told the twist. However, someone told me that there was a twist, and I immediately worked out, oh, she is actually an alien. So I watched the film knowing that, and it really hampered my enjoyment. This film is so good. It has a really interesting premise. The actors are working their hardest. They're both very charismatic, very talented actors. They're creating really interesting characters. It's a scenario I haven't seen before, and the themes are so they're so succulent. They're so brilliant. The themes, they're so salient to the modern world about the harm that is wrought by large companies and the need for revenge we all feel, and how you have to dehumanize these people who are destroying the planet in order to feel like you can exact the vengeance that you feel they deserve. That's all so good. And then it is ruined by the fact that Emma Stone is not actually playing a human being. She's playing an alien. And that really ruins the themes of the films, because suddenly all the violence that Jesse Plemons' character is inflicting upon her is justified. And that really lessens the impact of the film to me. Also, I have to say, the final shots, so in the end, Emma Stone is released from Jesse Plemons' custody, and she goes up into her spaceship and she decides to end all life on Earth. And the final shots are of every human being on Earth dead, just everyone lying dead in the middle of whatever they were doing when Emma Stone exterminated all life. And those shots are very impactful. They are very affecting. However, again, I do think that this goes against some of the morals of the film, where the impact of the destruction of the world will happen because of the actions of corporations. But it's not just going to be one person pressing a button. It's going to be very slow. It's going to be torturous. It's going to be horrible to witness. And I think the film kind of glosses over that, sadly, with this ending. I would have put Bugonia probably in my top 3 if Emma Stone's character had not turned out to be an alien. But sadly she did, and so I can't put it higher. Also, I have to say, I love Emma Stone. Emma Stone is my favourite working actress. I think she gives a phenomenal performance here. But again, the fact that she is meant to be an alien, that is not really communicated in any of her performance until the ending, when she is revealed to be an alien to the audience. So she is an alien playing a human extremely well, which is fine on a narrative standpoint, but it does feel like not fair play as an audience watching this film, knowing the twist. So I'm sorry, Bugonia. I absolutely loved this film until the ending, but the ending did spoil it for me. Number 16, The Alabama Solution, which was nominated for Best Documentary. I was surprised I hadn't heard about this scenario. This is about the American prison system, specifically in Alabama, and the absolutely horrific conditions endured by prisoners in that state. It It's told mostly with camera footage because there's now so many phones in public prisons, contraband cell phones, that the prisoners have been able to document some of the awful things that happen to them, just the conditions they're expected to live in. It is ghastly. Again, this is a film that will make your blood boil. And I think the use of the actual cell phone footage is a really clever way to communicate that to the audience, because you are just forced to look at real horrific situations happening that other people have been forced to witness. The situation that I was saying I was surprised I hadn't heard about was that part of the Alabama solution is all the prisoners go on strike, because in the American legal system, in the American prison system, prisoners are expected to work, and that actually makes up quite a large backbone of the American economy. And the prisoners go on strike. I was surprised I hadn't heard about that in the news. As I said, I don't live in the Western Hemisphere, so it didn't make the news over here. This film is a very difficult watch. You will be absolutely incandescent with rage at the mistreatment of these prisoners if you have any kind of heart. So be warned, it is a brutal, brutal watch. Number 15, If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You was written and directed by the woman who is married to the man who wrote Marty Supreme. And I think If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You should get all of Marty Supreme's nominations. And then by the Napoleonic Code, they would also go to her husband anyway, so that's fine. If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You is incredibly stressful. Rose Byrne gives an amazing performance in this film. It is, you identify with every single breath she takes, every moment of her existence on screen, and she is on screen for a lot of this film. You are absolutely in her headspace, understanding everything that's happening to her, and she is having a really, really bad time of it. So this is a stressful watch. It's anxiety inducing, but it's really well made. The cinematography, the direction of the film really helps to add to the themes. I also think it has some interesting metaphors and some interesting abstractions in it regarding, to not to sound too crass, but regarding holes. If you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. I cannot say I enjoyed this film, but I think it is very well made, and I think it's a shame it didn't get more nominations because it is extremely well crafted. Also, Conan O'Brien plays a supporting character in If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. He is hosting the Oscars this year. I think it's really a shame that I don't think enough people saw this film for him to play his character on the Oscars stage, which I wish he would do, but I doubt that will happen. Okay, moving on. Number 14, Two People Exchanging Saliva. This was nominated for Best Live Action Short. This is a very strange watch, but in a great way. It presents an alternate universe where the rules are different. Kissing is a crime punishable by death, it would seem, and also you don't pay for things with money. It's just if you buy something, then that person slaps you a number of times equal to what they think the value of what you're buying is. It's so odd. It's presented so archly, but it's brilliant. The cinematography is lovely. It's all in black and white. At times it kind of feels like a perfume advert that just got extended in the best way. I really enjoyed this film. It's funny, it's edgy, and it's just a wonderful use of the short film format to present a view of another world without having to explain everything, and just allowing the ideas to speak for themselves. Absolutely wonderful. Where was I? Number 13, Three Sisters, nominated for Best Animated Short. This is the highest animated short on my list. It has the least to say out of all the animated shorts, but it is just very, very funny, and it's very enjoyable, and I can't apologize for that. I really enjoyed watching it. Some people have said it's misogynistic, which I don't agree with. I don't think it has enough to say about anything to express a viewpoint on any kind of real world situation. It's just a bunch of jokes put together with fun animation, so I really enjoyed it, and I'm sorry to anyone who didn't. And I do think misogyny is a problem, but not in Three Sisters. Number 12, Jane Austen's period drama. This is nominated for Best Live Action Short. This is another one which is extremely funny, but it also has a very salient point to make about men's reaction to women's biology, well, to cis women's biology. It's about male reactions to menstruation and how how terrified women are about how men will react to menstruation. And it's just told in a very funny way. The costumes look great. I think the selection of Jane Austen's time period to tell this story is very funny and just very apt, and it allows for a great title, a wonderful pun, absolutely hysterical. I don't want to go into all the jokes because I don't want to spoil it for you. It's not very long. Please go watch it. It's wonderful. Number 11, Sirat. Sirat is nominated for Best International Film and also Best Sound. Sirat is another very difficult watch. It is about a father and son team who are looking for their daughter slash sister who has gone to a rave in the desert, and they are following along these people who go for raves in the desert, and these raves get shut down for various reasons, and they keep on traveling, and it is an extremely difficult watch. There is a lot of violence, there is a lot of tragedy in this film. It looks gorgeous. It is stunningly well shot, and it tells a very poignant tale about loss, about family, and about what drives people to extremes of behavior. And I think it's a really amazing film. So again, I would highly recommend going to watch Sirat. Okay, my phone's memory is almost full again, so I'm going to have to take a short pause, and then we'll get into the top 10. See you soon.